Let's analyze why I keep hurting my own feelings. Okay, no, but seriously. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Colorado. Carol here. It is time for a book vlog. Oh, yes. Where are my readers at? Hey. So, as you know, this year I've had quite the year when it comes to reading. First, I am really killing it with my goal. My goal for the year is to read 24 books in 2026, and so far I am up to 15. Ha! So we are trending in the right direction. However, I keep picking what feels like the wrong thing. My intent this last book was to find a love story. I really enjoyed Atmosphere, which was a love story, and it was very dramatic, but also beautifully written, and I really enjoyed the journey. And so I was like, let me find another love story. It didn't need to be an epic love story, and it didn't necessarily even need to be a light and fluffy book, or so I thought. And with that in mind, I picked up Last Night in Montreal by Emily St. John Mandel. And this is the same author that wrote Station 11, as the book shows you. I have read Station 11, I've read Glass Hotel, and I have also read Sea of Tranquility. While those books were not necessarily meant to all be read together, I do think it benefits you to read them in that quartet style, and I really enjoyed it. I had a good time with that several years ago. And therefore, I know that I enjoy this author's writing, and I was like, let's give it a go. And the premise seemed simple enough. When Lilia Albert was a child, her father appeared on the doorstep of her mother's home and took her away. Now haunted by an inability to remember much about her early childhood, Lilia moves restlessly from city to city, abandoning lovers and eluding the private detective who has dedicated a career to following close behind, until she meets Eli, her latest boyfriend. When Lilia goes out for a paper and fails to return to their Brooklyn apartment, he follows her to Montreal, not knowing whether he wants to disappear too or help her find her way home. And I went into this unrealistically, thinking that this was going to be an epic love story journey where he goes to Montreal and finds her, and they are then working through her childhood trauma while also taking on their relational dynamics. And boy, was I wrong. Without going into spoiler territory, I want to talk about what this book is doing and why it wasn't the author's fault that I really didn't enjoy the journey. If you have read other titles by this author, then you know that something that she really enjoys doing is having a large cast of characters who she will, throughout the story, interweave their narratives to the point where by the end of it, they all come together. This is something that every other title that I've read by her does really, really well. I really enjoyed that about Station 11, Glass Hotel, and The Sea of Tranquility. This author is very good about being able to interweave those narratives and really put a cohesive story together. And so I can say this book is incredibly well written. This author has a wide variety of subjects that she talks about in all of her novels, and that was a really fun time. I really enjoyed learning things along while reading this book. And it takes place in the United States and in Canada. I do believe the author herself is from Canada, and so she quite frequently will bring up topics that have to do with Canada, and that's just not where I'm from, so it's not something I'm necessarily familiar with. And so that's what I say when I say that she teaches you something along the way. In this case, I learned about Montreal, a province that I didn't know a whole lot about prior to going into this book, and I did enjoy that. Now let's get into what I didn't enjoy. Based upon the nature of the book, while I did expect things to be particularly heavy, I don't think she did a really good job of honing in on the primary character and really setting us up for success and understanding who she was as a person. And that may be a hot take, but because she spends so much time getting us involved with other characters in the story, I think she did a disservice to Lilia in helping us to understand who she was, what her primary motivations are, and especially, I think she got the short end of the stick when it came to the actual outcome of what happened to her. While I do feel we spent a lot of good time with the beginning of the story and what was happening, and kind of in the middle, getting to the central thesis, I feel like by the time we got to the end of the book, it was a little lazy. We wrapped up the story very quickly with kind of neat little bows, and the ending felt rushed and not very satisfactory. The other issue that I take with the book is that I feel like we spent a lot of time with the primary male love interest, Eli. And I think, again, that didn't sit well with me. I felt like we spent so much time with him that it took away from Lilia's story, and it also took away from our ability to really understand some of the motivations of the other characters. There is also a character who is not mentioned in the synopsis of the book, and therefore I will not mention here specifically, but this other side character is really who the book ends up being about. And it took me by surprise. It wasn't expected, and nowhere is it listed in the synopsis to help you understand the dynamics of how that will play out. And so for me, this book definitely fell flat. Not to mention, y'all, I've just read a lot of sad books this year of my own doing, and I know that. And it just wasn't a good time. I feel like the book took me longer than it should have to get through. It's a relatively short book, and still it took me what felt like days and days. Overall, it was 3 days when I stacked it all together, but that 3 days was over the span of a week because I just kept putting it down and wasn't very interested in picking it up. I actually brought the book with me to my tattoo appointment where I was able to just sit and read for a dedicated chunk of time. And I got nearly halfway through the book before I actually had to put it down, because not only was it not keeping me distracted from the pain of my tattoo, but it wasn't making sense. And I think at one point I had to reread 2 or 3 pages in a row. And I was like, you know what? It's time to put this book down, get this tattoo finished, and I will pick this up later. And in general, for me, that's not a good sign. I am usually able to keep track of what I'm reading. And so the fact that, yes, of course, I was in pain from the tattoo, but I'll be honest, it didn't hurt that much. But I was not able to get into the book during that time was a super bummer. And that leads us to today, because y'all, I need a win and I need to feel good. So while I was perusing Dollar Tree the other day, I decided that instead of spending money on another $25 book that I may or may not enjoy, I was going to take a chance on a Dollar Tree book, because for $1.25, maybe I would find a winner. Which leads me to my current read, which is Adam and Evie's Matchmaking Tour. This is by Nora Wynn, and a whole 5 quarters later, I am happy to report that this book so far is really what I've been looking for. Here we are in the deep thick of summer, and your girl just wants a lighthearted rom-com romance. I want the 2 primary characters to fall in love. I want there to be an easy climax for all. And I don't want it to get too dark. And so that is why I have picked up this read next. This is 2 Stubborn Hearts, One Whirlwind Adventure. Evie Lang's life is in shambles. On the heels of losing her beloved aunt, she's unceremoniously fired from her job by her secret boyfriend. Lacking income and inspiration, she's stuck in Ohio with no idea how to move forward until hope arrives in a surprising letter. A world away, Adam Wynn, or I think it's Quen, Q-U-Y-E-N. I do try my best to make sure I'm pronouncing names correctly, especially for POC people, and so I will be looking that one up. Adam has a chip on his shoulder. He's working around the clock as CMO for his sister's elite matchmaking business, a job complicated by her insistence that he knows nothing about love. Oh my, he's desperate to prove himself, so when she challenges him to join the inaugural tour, he reluctantly agrees. So I'm not very far into this read, and so far, so good. It is giving me all of the cozy romance vibes. It's not a big read, and this is what I am going to tackle today. And of course, I'm going to bring you along for the journey. So we've got a little bit of a daily vlog today, as well as a reading vlog, and hopefully your girl can have a win, because I just want some good vibrations, you know? All right, it is a little bit later, and I am making Joanna a pizza for like a late afternoon lunch slash dinner, or as we like to call it, dinner. So I am just trying to get this box open, and I will give you a reading update. All right, we have got this set up. Adam and Evie have met, and I know those names are cringe, but Adam is not the character's real name. That is his American name. So that's kind of interesting. There we go. I think that's pretty actual typical of Asian cultures when they move to the United States, or when they have involvement with Americans or people that speak English. A lot of times they will forego using their native name for the ease of other people. And it's definitely something that I'm like, oof, that never makes me feel good. I'd rather just learn how to say someone's name. But I think that the author is doing a great job of inserting little facts like that about her own culture. And I like when an author does that. So that's been interesting. Okay, pizza is in the oven. The other thing that I wanted to say is that I really enjoy the characters so far. Their banter is witty, and they are not like insta-loving each other, but the sparks are definitely flying, and there was a physical attraction from the very beginning, which is very fun to read about. So overall, I'm having a good time. Okay, I admit the lighting is not the best, but friends, I did it. I finished the book. Honestly, really excited to have done this today. I feel like the last book, I could feel myself heading towards a reading slump where I wanted to just stop reading the book. But as I've shared before, if I am in the middle of a book, I'm not the type of reader that can pick up another book until I finish the other one. And so I was like, I'm going to push through this book. But part of me was like, I wonder if I'm going to end up taking a break afterwards and just falling out of the habit of reading. But I would like to thank Adam and Evie's matchmaking tour for being everything that I needed it to be. A light summer romance rom-com, two beautiful people in beautiful locations in Vietnam falling in love with one another. Now, of course, there were things to get in their way, and you know, they're adults in their 30s and they have their own baggage that they've been through and carry with them, and they had to overcome that. but really enjoyed Nora Wynn's writing. Will read from her again. I plan on looking her up on Goodreads now that I have read this book from her. A new author to me, but super excited to have a new perspective on romance. And it is nice reading about characters that are in their 30s who have a bit of life on them and the problems or, the barriers to their romance were things that made sense. And I appreciated that. But you guys, I'm so excited about this one. I am going to give it, I do believe, 5 stars because I had a really good time. I enjoyed the writing. I laughed out loud. I teared up at a couple of different parts. I liked all of the side characters. I think everybody had a really interesting arc. And there was enough of the side characters that they felt like real people without overtaking the primary couple, which can happen sometimes in a romance. And of course, they're on a matchmaking tour. And that means there are definitely other people that are involved. And they were really fun perspectives to read from. And I appreciated them as well. And with that, I am going to close out today's vlog. I hope that you enjoyed hanging out with me for a simple reading vlog. And now I'm super happy to dive into something next. If you all have a romance that you would recommend, let me know in a comment down below. Here's what I'm hoping for. Nothing too long, because I don't have the attention span sometimes for super epic reads. And I would prefer something more light and fluffy, but I also appreciate complex characters, if that makes sense. People with some dirt on them. And if the primary characters in the book are unlikable, I don't like that either. I prefer to like the characters I'm reading about. So that's it. If you have any ideas, let me know. If you're in the middle of reading something, I'd love to chat about it with you in the comment section down below. What other readers do I have out there? And what do you prefer to read? Are you a fiction versus nonfiction kind of person? I know some people only read certain genres like self-help or only horror or only romance. I am not really into the self-help, but otherwise, I really enjoy a good fiction piece. And lately, I've really enjoyed a good fluffy romance. What can I say? But with that, my friends, I'm going to close out the video. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you all are doing well, and I will see you in my next one. If you would be so kind to give this video a big thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. And if you have the option to hype it up here on YouTube, I would appreciate that as well. It helps to push out my content to other awesome people like you who enjoy everyday lifestyle mom content and just hanging out, because that's the content I enjoy watching. And I will see you in my next one. Bye.